Okay, and let's see. I think I see. Oh, yeah, there we go. We got the gameplay going here. What's going on, everyone? And thank you for dropping by tonight for the Xbox Roundtable podcast. This is show number 221, the place for Xbox-related talk and more on Sunday nights. Of course, I'm your host, Invader, and I gotta say that we've got an awesome show planned for you tonight for our wonderful listeners. For tonight, we're gonna cover quite a few things. E3 is officially canceled. We'll give you our thoughts on if the show will ever make a comeback. As well, PlayStation finally revealing its new revamped subscription service. We'll dive into that and, well, a few other topics to say the least. But of course, we need to get to the panel introductions, starting off with General MLD. Bud, great to see you here. How you been?
Hey, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Recently just sunk my teeth into Crusader Kings 3, just released on Game Pass, and boy, is that game complicated. Yeah, I hit a roadblock, but I'm gonna try and watch some videos online, try and just push through it, and because it keeps saying it, once you do push through it, it's a lot better and a lot rewarding. So yeah, that's what I've been doing so far.
Nice. Yeah, I've been meaning to. I'm probably gonna download it after the show tonight. Would you recommend it for like console players that are interested in RTS?
Well, it's if you're familiar with Civilization or even other Paradox games like Stellaris, it's a big time sink. But if you're willing to put in the time for like a real time strategy game, then this is the game for you.
What game is this?
Crusader Kings 3.
Okay.
Yeah, like you're basically managing your own medieval kingdom and all the politics and that come with it. So it's very, very, very interesting.
Oh, so it's like world governments of today.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I guess so.
Did we ever come out of the dark ages of government? I'm just wondering.
Oh,
No,
we'll see.
No, unfortunately not. But yeah, it's funny when you say that, Centurion. But yeah, it's a title that I've been keeping my eye on and kind of curious with how it does on console. So I will certainly be checking that out. I do love my RTSs. Moving on over, Eric Shockley, bud. Hey, how you doing? Have you gotten into any gaming over the past week?
Yeah, just been running through some Kirby and the Forgotten Land this weekend. So definitely one of the better Kirby games for sure. I didn't pick up the last one because it seemed pretty shallow. The other one, first one on the Switch. But this one's pretty dope. The co-op's really cool. That's been a lot of fun. That's what I've just been playing it as. It's just a straight co-op with the wife. So, but yeah, definitely pick it up. Boss battles are pretty fun. So, yep, definitely. I would say this one's definitely worth the price. Kind of like a Kirby meets, Mario Odyssey size game. So,
All right.
Good lengthy, decent platformer. So.
Well, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was talking to the guys before the show, and that's one title that I will probably be getting sometime this next week because it's, I like Kirby, I like 3D platformers. Nintendo does a pretty good job at them, obviously. So I really want to see what they're doing. I just can't believe that this is Kirby's first 3D iteration. It just seems like a no-brainer to have done it a long time ago. So.
Yeah, closest thing would have been like the one on N64. It reminds me of this one or that one a lot. You don't get to mix the abilities, but you can upgrade the abilities, and they get really crazy and cool. Kind of like in that game. If you ever played the 64 version, so.
Okay, all right, good to know. I'm definitely looking forward to playing it. Moving down the list here, Centurion Pal, how's things?
Oh man, how's things? Well, it's Sunday night. It's time for TXR, time to talk games, Xbox, everything in between. And man, it's been a good week. Lots of great topics, tons of drama breaking out on social media. And hey, I finally completed Dying Light 2.
Holy
Nice.
crap. So between drama, politics, and you got through Dying Light 2. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, speaking of drama and politics, there is definitely a lot of drama and politics in Dying Light 2. They make you pick there was very interesting on some of the choices you had to make and how they affected the game and just overall. But I will definitely say I'm glad that they have a roadmap outlining that there's going to be DLC for this game, because I just feel that it kind of like ended very abruptly. It did catch me off. Like, I mean, like I was playing the game, I did all the side quests that I could find anyways, and I get to this door, and all of a sudden you touch the door, and it's like, caution, proceeding past this point will start the epilogue of the game, and you should do everything you can before this point. And I'm just like, wow, that was a lot sooner than I thought it would happen.
All right, good to know. Yeah, I've been. I mean, you were talking to me about Dying Light, like the original for forever. Now you got Dying Light 2. So overall, does it meets your expectations? Yeah.
To say it met my expectations. It felt like Dying Light 2. Definitely the zombies were there, but they definitely evolved the series by having a much more heavy role of obviously encountering people. In other words, that's why it's called Stay Human, because there is a much more larger human element in it, and that's where you have the politics of the different factions. But that's where, I mean, like it's like kind of like in the original Dying Light 2, you didn't go out at night when you first started the game. If you did, you were like bolting everywhere because you didn't want to be seen or anything. In this game, it's more like learning to just live the lifestyle, and that's where people have been living like this for a while now. During the day, you can go out. During the night, if you're looking to get into the buildings that have good loot in them, you got to wait till night for all the zombies to come out because they're very UV sensitive, and then you got to sneak into the building and loot the place while they're outside feeding, and obviously get out of there before you're even noticed. So they've definitely changed up the gameplay loop, and at least I enjoyed my experience.
All right, good to know. I'm sure a few of the guys in the chat would agree with you on that. And let's see, Crusader, bud, how you been?
I've been real good. So anyone who follows me knows that I lucked into getting a 3080 Ti. So I spent all day Thursday assembling the desktop of I've Got Too Much Power. And I have been spending most of today resetting up my Skyrim mods. So I'm stress testing the new PC with modded Skyrim.
All right. Well, I hope everything works out for you there. I remember you posted in the group DM, some pictures of the hall. So yeah, I could tell how excited you were. So
I was so excited when everything came, and I almost couldn't get everything to fit in the case that I got. In fact, I thought I was gonna have to order a new case and disassemble the whole thing while I was building it. It was almost defeating, and then I figured out if I moved a couple things around and switched some positions of some stuff, I could just barely get it all to fit.
All right, well, good stuff, man. I'm glad you were able to fit everything in. I know that it can be a little time-consuming and a little tiresome trying to do that, so I'm glad everything worked out there. All right, and just so everyone knows, Tim Dog should be making it tonight. He's running a little bit behind, but he should be coming in well, a little while anyways. Guys, a reminder to everyone tuning in that we are available on a large number of audio services: Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and loads more. If you can't tune in live and you prefer to be on the go, then hey, maybe just, check out these different audio platforms. Again, there's boatloads of them. Just check the description as well. And hey, just look us up. We're on a wide array of these suckers. So hey, definitely subscribe to us and check us out for your TXR on the go. Okay, well, why don't we break into our first topic for the night? And after months of talk and rumors, PlayStation have finally announced an upgrade to the PlayStation Plus subscription service. It combines the traditional PlayStation Plus with PlayStation Now streaming. It's just called PlayStation Plus, just keep retaining that name, but now it's broken up into 3 price tiers, those being Essential, Extra, and Premium. The service will see this update in June, and I'm sure everyone here has thoughts on this update. We've been it's been hinted at for a while, but I'll start off with general MLD. But again, we've been anticipating this move for a while now. What do you think of these changes? Does it compete with Xbox Game Pass? Do you think it's good? Do you have any criticisms? Please dive right in here.
Oh yes. Well, it's finally good to actually have this official now. We've been talking back and forth on Twitter at least for weeks now, based on all these Spartacus rumors. And in the end, I think Sony had to do this. PS Now has been around since 2014, and has only managed to get 3 million subscribers. So from one reason or another, the name just doesn't stick. So why not just gut it, put it onto PlayStation Plus, and see if that better name recognition does help those numbers go up. So I can see the business sense in that. It is a smart move. But then you actually look at what it is, and they say, and the fans say, that it's not a Game Pass competitor, but I mean, who are we kidding? The Xbox and PlayStation, they are each other's primary competition. The fans, both hardcore gamers and casuals alike, they will inevitably compare the two just because. And when you do that, it's clear that they're not really trying as much as they maybe should. Like Game Pass, clearly Xbox, they're the hungry ones this generation. They're the ones that have the uphill battle to gain back a lot of market share from last generation. So they're the ones that are really eager now. Whereas PlayStation, they're more like they're trying, but in the end, they know their market position. They'll add features as they need to, I feel like. But I mean, going through it now, the PlayStation Plus first tier is just what it is. It's what we all know. PlayStation Plus. It's the multiplayer paywall with deals on the store, stuff like that. But the extra, it's $100, and you get the PS4 and PS5 games, about 400 of them, and that's okay. I mean, I feel like a lot of people online say that's the most desirable tier. I think it's like the sweet spot. I think not as much as to say like the $120 Game Pass catalog is, but again, moving on. Then you got the premium, which is basically, this is the controversial one because people don't really see the value for money here. Essentially, it's just demos and backwards compatibility. I mean, they finally did it, but I think a large parts of them are only streamable only. And yeah, you got to pay the highest tier to even have access to them, which is rubbing a lot of gamers the wrong way. So, I mean, that's what it is. It's not a competitor. It's not as good, but it is, I guess you could say PlayStation Plus got an upgrade, I guess. But the value aspect, there's no contest. Like we still have by far the best deal. By far, the biggest differentiator is day one titles. And as we've seen with the 2021 Metacritic scores of Xbox Studios games, launching day one on Game Pass has not impacted the quality of the games. Any narrative that Sony or the fans say is just false. Xbox is maintaining quality. If anything, the quality went up. They won the Metacritic Publisher of the Year, like last year. I think they had the highest Metacritic average of any publisher of all time on Metacritic.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, exactly. So we are still the ones to beat. We still have by far the best deal, but at least Sony's trying. So at least they're getting there. But it's just funny, all the narratives you see online, how all of a sudden PlayStation Plus is now beating Game Pass. And it always irritates me. I try to hide the irritation, but the vast majority are just paying for the multiplayer paywall. Only 3 million are actually subscribers. But now they feel like they can now lump it all in together, which is the weirdest little narrative pivot. But that's my little rant on that. Overall, it's better, but I think we're still on top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to look at this MLD. It's interesting that they break it up into 3 tiers, but probably there's a couple of glaring omissions, and one is that, again, the PlayStation 3, it's games, it's only available as streaming, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Or
yeah, I think so, yes.
Yeah,
cloud streaming only. Because of the cell processor, right? It was just so hard to program for. There was zero hindsight for future proofing at the time, and here we are. Because they can't. Yeah, it's just super difficult to make them natively downloadable.
It's not difficult. They're just being damn right lazy.
I know.
There's talented individuals that do that crap for free on the PC. So if somebody can do it at home for free as a hobby, I'm pretty sure a multi-billion-dollar company can find a good developer to actually do it properly.
Yeah, you think so? But yeah, here we are. So it is what it is.
Yeah, no, totally. And I love Centurion's passion coming out. Buddy, please interject here. Tell me your thoughts, how you feel about this, because yeah, it is interesting that, I mean, they're not going to go with even any like emulators here for the premium edition. It's just streaming, which I understand, you know, combining these services, and I think that in itself is good. But it's just, man, it sucks that you can't play these games natively.
So what I'm about to say, let's just put it to the side for a second that yes, I dress up as a masked character for fun and wear a giant Xbox logo gold that's like just like diamond encrusted. Like, I may be an Xbox fan, but I'm going to tackle this from the consumer perspective, and at least my perspective in establishing value, because I have to help the business I work for in my actual real life, you know, establish value on the products they sell, because they constantly compete with other people who are trying to put them out of business. I work in a very competitive, very cutthroat industry. Let's start with PlayStation Plus Essential. Includes multiplayer access to monthly downloaded games. So we're already putting a number on how many downloaded games you're going to get. So that means you're getting 2, not 3, not 4, 2. That means we are already stripping you of getting games. So let's.
Can I interject with that real quick? Currently, PS Plus also only says 2, even though they are giving more.
Right.
They've never changed the actual listing to include the extra PS5 game. That was something I learned when I put that out there and discussed that, is that they've never actually stated you'd get more than 2 at any given time.
Now, but why is Sony doubling down on the statement? Either they have, I'm not trying to interrupt you, forgive me, but there's a reason why they're doubling down on that statement and bringing it back up. They've not acknowledged that for a very long time. Kudos on them. But there's a reason why they're doubling down on that statement, because they probably do have intentions in the future to probably start cutting back on some of the game offerings for free games. Which,
if I had to guess, they'll be dropping PS4.
And that's what I'm thinking eventually. Yeah. And if you really want me to be blunt, I'm sorry, but even Xbox's offerings for free games have been a little paltry. PlayStations are starting to go that direction. It seems like the concept of giving out free games for the subscription service is slowly starting to not drive the concept of people wanting to subscribe. And so they've kind of let it fall to the wayside on both sides. The big one that's for me, at least on the PlayStation Plus Essential, which is the biggest amount of BS ever, is cloud storage for save games. This is a concept and a caveat, and also amenity that Xbox gives to its consumers free of charge for no extra price. It's absolutely amazing to be able to go out right now, if I feel like it, and buy an Xbox console of my choosing. And when I turn that thing on and sign in, it's going to sync all my data from my account. Revolutionary, in my opinion. Now, obviously, we're going into, MLD talked about the PlayStation Plus Extra. I would have to say that's probably the sweet spot right there. Everybody is already used to paying $15 a month. It actually seems like a good starting point for PlayStation to create that PlayStation Plus Extra, and I really think that's where a lot of people are going to be getting their subscription at. But it's that game streaming thing. Obviously, we just I made a comment on it. It's really not hard for people who are at home as hobbyists to create an emulator to run a PS3 game, and for some reason Sony acts like it's the hardest thing in the world. But we are also talking about the company that used a lot of bubblegum and duct tape in creating their online network. And so that's where I kind of chuckle at how PlayStation has just danced around this backwards compatibility thing. And if you want my honest opinion, this subscription service sounds exactly like Game Pass when it first came out, which is why I did not buy into Game Pass for at least I want to say 6 to 12 months. I think it was actually almost a full 12 months before I finally bought into Game Pass. And to prove that, I bought Sea of Thieves physically. I bought State of Decay 2 physically. I have a lot of games from the first year of Game Pass physically because that was my preferred mindset was I'm just going to continue buying my games as usual because there's nothing in Game Pass to really make me want to buy in. And then Microsoft changed their tune, started putting everything in there day and date and all this other stuff. Started coming out with the perk system for being part of Game Pass Rewards Ultimate. Some games even come, like Gears 5 comes with all the Ultimate DLC and stuff like that. There was a lot of perks that made me buy in, and I feel like Microsoft has not stopped. They have been the train that cannot be stopped when it comes to what they can offer in their subscription service. And if PlayStation doesn't want to compete on that level, then yeah, they created a product that is not going to compete with Game Pass. Period. End of story. And that's where I feel they're probably gearing this more for multiplayer. I explained that last week. I told Invader that I just really feel that they're going to be using their subscription service more as games as a service to keep people, because, you know, what more could you want? Would you rather have free to play games like Halo Infinite where you just go play the game for free, or you somehow create a model where the person constantly plays a monthly subscription fee to play what would other be a free-to-play game?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the chat related to what you're saying, Carlos said something very telling, and I agree with him, that they have to put their games as a service games on PC and launch them day and date. Not wanting to cut the player base. PlayStation is testing the waters on their subscription service. They're seeing how many people will bite. And I'll be honest, I agree, especially when you look at they bought Bungie recently, and Bungie is, basically turned themselves into a huge games as a service, and they're developing more titles in the pipeline from the sounds of it that are geared towards that. And I have a feeling more of their acquisitions will be based around maybe those types of titles, because again, you need to, especially with how they're proposing PlayStation Plus here with their tier system, games as a service games would work very well in this system. Yeah, there's lots to bite into here, but just to add on to what you're saying as well, Centurion, Xbox, with Game Pass Ultimate, we have access to PC titles, and you can just download them natively onto the PC, and there's nothing cloud related there. I mean, again, you're paying. Again, granted, I mean, you brought up the perk system. I mean, that's nice for, again, the Xbox guys, but that also transfers over to the PC. Plus, again, those day one games on the PC and whatever third party games they have. Not to mention the fact that Xbox is partnered with EA Play. They have access to those games. And, well, I mean, we already know about Ubisoft and Xbox have some kind of a deal. We still don't know the details of that, but they have something going on there. Xbox has a much grander scale of things going on for them, that it's not just the console itself, but the ecosystem. Shock Buddy, I mean, I would love to know your thoughts on this. Obviously, I know that you're a PlayStation gamer. Like, what are your thoughts on this tiered system that they announced? Was it within your expectations, or did anything surprise you? Like, how are you liking it overall?
Nothing like really was surprising about it, since we were kind of also told it was just going to be a rebranding, which pretty much was. So nothing really changed. They just kind of renamed it because PS Now wasn't doing that great. So this kind of gives them the ability to say, hey, PS Plus has, add in the PS Now and PS Plus together, might have like total of like close to 50 million. So it looks better in comparison when they can just compare that directly to Game Pass. It also kind of increased the price for PS Now, because you're not given a and or kind of like you are with Game Pass. You can do Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate. So if you don't play online, you can get all the features pretty much of Game Pass almost by just using the $10 a month version. But with PS Plus, to actually keep what you had, you have to pay $120 a year instead of 60 a year because you're forced to buy PS Plus, which that was a perk before. It used to be you buy PS Now and you can play it online without paying for PS Plus. Now that's kind of gone away. You have to either you're paying almost $18 about $18 a month, or you're forced to pay $120. And the only thing with doing the upfront cost to actually even make it a better deal than Game Pass, not even a better deal, but like just as cheap or somewhat less expensive, they're at that point you're having to give faith into a service when you don't know what games are going to be in there. Whereas Game Pass, you kind of know, like, hey, well, at least all their first party games that drop day one are going to be there, and there's going to be some third party unknowns. Some you do know, some you don't, but the first party games that they've laid out in the coming years that they've announced are coming. You have no guarantee of what's coming, so it's like you kind of have to like invest in the service for 120 for the year to make it worthwhile, and then hope you get good stuff. And a lot of times when they put their first party stuff in there, it tends to only stick around for a few months, at least in the past. So it's definitely not as good in that regard. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of all it is that a rebranding, and it gives them the ability to, if they need to, adjust on the fly later. If they see like, okay, Starfield's really blowing up this year and doing numbers on Game Pass, and people are just like, hey, how am I able to play this? Hopefully it's a high quality game, but something on the level of like a Skyrim. If you see everybody's playing that and people are seeing like, wait, I can just pay for Game Pass and get that? Oh, okay. And it makes a really big impact. Then that kind of gives them the ability to like, okay, well, maybe don't put God of War in there, but maybe we drop a smaller title, say like a Ratchet and Clank or a Returnal or something like that. Returnal's going to be in there, but like a game like that day one that they could drop in, that's not like a huge, they're huge megaton hitter like God of War Ragnarok would be if it was in there day one. So but otherwise it's I just don't see the appeal, because I like who is this service for? If it's for the hardcore, all the hardcore fan base for Sony has all those games that they're putting in there. They already have more than likely Returnal and Miles Morales. Like Miles Morales sold what? I think it's close to like 20 million. Like it sold ridiculously.
Yeah,
so
with, like, every
all of them
PS4.
already have these games. So
Or
who is it
PS5.
for?
It
If
came
it's
with, like,
for the
every PS5.
casual, is the casual paying 120 for this? I don't think so. So I don't know who this is for. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious, like, again, how they're structuring it. And I mean, they already do have again, like a group of like 20 games that people can download for free through PlayStation Plus. I'll be curious to see if they'll be expanding that at a later date. They got some pretty good games in there, but it just kind of is a no-brainer to compete with Xbox, or at least put in like all your PS4 exclusives day one. I mean, I don't see why not. Like, just have them all available to PlayStation Plus users. Have that library there and be like, oh, well, that's worth it for a lot of people, in my opinion. I know Crusader that you had chimed in a bit earlier, but like overall, like, I mean, they still, Xbox, you don't have to pay for cloud saves. They still have the cloud storage on here that you have to pay for. They got, it still bugs me, honestly, that PlayStation 3 games on here are streaming. And they're advertising exclusive demos. I mean, we still get demos on Xbox every now and then, but it's like demos aren't really a thing that, they just kind of, you don't see that anymore, to be honest with you. You don't see that. It's so much easier just to like download a game now from like Game Pass and be like, oh yeah, I'll play it for a few minutes. I don't really like it that much, because I get to try out at least the full game anyways, a full sample size. Like, do you have anything more to add to this?
Yeah, so Um, I don't want to tread over old ground too much. I'm upset about the PS3 games. Um, it's not the easiest thing in the world to like the clean room developers who are not using any of Sony's source code have done a fairly good job at creating an emulator over the course of like 6 years. Um, it's not the simplest thing in the world to do. They were trying to do some experimental tech on the PS3 with the IBM. I'll tell you what, they were trying to revolutionize processing, and to a point they did, but it's impossible to program for. Because they did not have a good like compatibility layer between the hardware and the actual software that you're trying to run. And that was ultimately the problem, and that's what's still leading to the problem today. Because even though RSPCS3, I think it's the emulator name, or RPCS3 or something like that. It can launch just about every PS3 game, but almost a quarter to half of them crash. You need tweaks for almost every file that's being run. So it's not just as simple as make them do it. But I'm mad that it's been, what? How many years was the PS4 out? 8 years now? 9 years? And we're 2 years, we're a year and a half into the PS5, and they still haven't come up with anything. That's frustrating. And it's also very frustrating that there's still so many PS1 through 3 first party or Sony published games missing. People probably, anyone who follows me in chat, you have to know that every chance I get, I tweet angry tweets about how Ratchet and Clank is missing, right? Every PS2 Ratchet and Clank is missing. And my favorite Ratchet and Clank, fifth favorite game of all time, Tools of Destruction, is missing. And there's no real word on if we're getting new backwards compatible games in this. I have to go through the list of PS Now. They said, I think, 340 PS1 through 3 games are going to be in the service. I have to go through the list now and see how many are currently in the list, because I don't know if that means we're actually getting new ones. And if we're not, that's super disappointing. But I do want to comment on a few things that I did like about it. I did like that they have a yearly bundle price. That is something that Xbox misses. We do not have a yearly bundle price for Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate, and I wish we did. That is something that I think that, you know, it's a small thing, but it's something that we can say, hey, Sony's doing something good here, right? They're like, that is a good pricing strategy. I wish we had that. Because I think it was Centurion who was saying that, or was it Shock, who was saying that you know, buying it from the year up front is risky. Well, with Xbox, we generally know. You know what I mean? We know we're getting day one stuff. We've seen, maybe this year it's a little risky for the first half of the year, whatever. But I would still like that option, because options are good. Having more options is good. You know what I mean? And another thing that I like is the concept of the tier 2, where it's games plus the online service. And I think that's something that we miss on Xbox, because you go straight from raw Game Pass to Game Pass Ultimate, which is Game Pass on every platform, including cloud and EA Play. I think we need a tier of Game Pass in between that is just Game Pass plus gold, right? No EA Play, no cloud, no PC, and put it in the halfway point in price in between. Because again, it comes down to the options, and I think that would be a more powerful onboarding option for some people who don't really want all of the stuff that Ultimate offers, but still want to bundle their gold with Game Pass. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
100%.
We need more tiers of Game Pass. They should overhaul it.
Yeah, because like I think there should be an entry point where there's an entry point for cloud, an entry point for PC, and an entry point for console. Right now we're missing the entry point for cloud. We have an entry point for PC and console. And then Ultimate is the perfect highest tier. It's you are the power user. You are fully integrated into the Xbox ecosystem. You play on the cloud, you play on PC, you play on console. And we have that. That's what Ultimate is. But we don't have that middle tier where you're kind of getting perks of you're getting some of the perks but not all of them. And that's something we definitely need. And I think I think Sony did a pretty good job of creating a nice 3-tiered structure. I think like MLD had said at the beginning, I think the highest tier needs a little bit more oomph to it. But their division structure is fairly good. I myself am probably going to end up getting the second tier. And the third thing is consistency. And this was touched on by some other people here, but there is no promised consistency with this platform. It doesn't have to be day one. You don't have to be day one to make me happy and subscribe to this. I don't need that. I am very happy with it on Game Pass. Don't get me wrong, and it is what makes Game Pass so freaking great.
Yeah.
But we don't even have that EA Play style. It's coming at most in 12 months, you know? Because with EA Play, you're guaranteed every EA game is coming to EA Play at most 12 months. Most come at 6. With Sony, it's like, they'll come sometime, lol. You know? Like, it's... And, you know, we've seen with PS Now this past year, they put Last of Us 2 on the service, and then it left. It didn't... First-party game they put on the service, and it didn't even stay. So... I'd like to see more consistency from the service before I truly am on board with it. And that's something that's true for any streaming service, you know. If it was... Disney has such a consistent drop rate of new shows, now you might not be all in on them if you don't like superheroes or Star Wars, but there's like always a new show starting on Disney. You always have a reason to stay subscribed. With PlayStation, they could have that. You know, they don't even have to do it day one, but they could have it at a point where, like, this month, you know, let's say a year from now, God of War Ragnarok is dropping into the service after it's been out for 6 months. Oh, and a few months later, this game's dropping into the service, you know. But we don't have that promise of consistency, so it's hard to feel for the service without that promise. And maybe they have that plan, but they definitely haven't told us about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be nice to know, you know, get around the vagueness of when their titles are gonna drop, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, like you said, EA even has something, yeah, like 6 to 8 months, their newer titles will drop in there eventually, right? And there's like a, you know, a general rule of thumb, like, again, like a 6 to 8 months kind of thing, whereas, yeah, I mean, Sony just doesn't really give a clear indication of when their first-party games are going to be dropping into the service. So,
Ubisoft Plus even has the same promise. I believe there's 2 tiers of Ubisoft Plus right now, where there's one where it's at a year and there's one where it's instant. So, like, that's a concept that these subscription services have. Even with Disney Plus, if it's a movie that's in the theater, it comes on either at 45 or 90 days. I can't remember what they settled on. It got all kinds of weird during COVID, but they have they even have an advertised actual structure in that world. And this is something that this service really needs.
Mm-hmm. Now, coincidentally, articles now, and this is moving on to Xbox Game Pass because, again, Crusader, you talked about, you know, Xbox Game Pass, you know, it could use some tier updates, some updates to different things. Well, you know, coincidentally, an article came out from Windows Central's Jess Corden stating that there will be an Xbox Game Pass family plan that's in the works, that they're already working on it. And, you know, according to this, it'll have an additional 5 accounts to 1 subscription, paying for this family plan tier, which is, you know, I mean, kind of nice in my opinion. I mean, MLD, I mean, do you think that it's good that Xbox is addressing this? Because, again, a lot of people, you know, they want to, have access to this, but it's like, oh, it just kind of makes sense. It's kind of like with a Netflix account, right, or Amazon Prime, sharing an account between a couple of people.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a little I'm wondering how they would actually be worked out in terms of like the revenue sharing and whatnot. But I feel like there is a lot of potential to yeah to increase the subscriber count maybe. Like if you want multiple gamers separate accounts in the same household, yeah it'll increase the consumption of it. Yeah, and all the stuff that comes with that. Again, it just yeah, it's a matter of how it's actually going to work out. Like yeah, like I'm drawing a blank right now with the plan, but I feel like if they do it right, it can really help them out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a pretty smart move on their part, and again, just updating the service, add a tier for that, and I think you'll get a lot of people into that, and anybody who is hesitant, who they got a lot of people in the house. They have a couple of different accounts going. Everybody, has different tastes. It's like, for the games that they want to download, it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. But, overall, guys, I mean, I do like that PlayStation, Sony is getting aggressive, that they're updating PlayStation Plus. And, you like to see that with the industry, right? That it's moving along. I will be curious to see if they announce any other details coming up to June, a little closer to that with regards to the service. It does seem a little lackluster in some areas, but I am glad that, they do have some nice things in there, and some of the price points are pretty decent. It's just, maybe it's my bias, but it's just, I do love the whole day one thing with Xbox titles, and there's a few other things in there that there's some nice extra little perks there with the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, to say the least. But again, we will see in the coming months if there's any other details coming to with PlayStation Plus. Moving over, guys, to some other news, and we all basically saw this coming, but this year's E3 has been officially canceled. Now, back in January, they had announced switching from an in-person event to digital only. Now there's emails going out to various outlets and companies stating that the now digital events are completely canceled. Now, moving on down the list here. Crusader Bud, I mean, I'll hit you up on this first. Obviously, it sucks that this has to happen again. They're saying that they'll be back in 2023 next year. But do you think that they'll be able to recover from a few years of being on the sidelines? Because, it's been a couple of years now, and publishers just might want to do their own things now.
They're not going to be back. I'm going to say it straight up. I believe E3 is dead. I do not see... The only reason I could see an E3 surviving is if the big two that are still backing E3, which would be Nintendo and Microsoft, ultimately choose E3 to back. But I don't see that happening. They don't really need E3 itself anymore, the same structure of it. And I think the ESA was putting too many restrictions on it, and they were just running it poorly. I think we will see a very similar event come out of the ashes. I think we're going to see ultimately Jeff Keighley create something, and I think every year it's going to get better, because this year's Summer Game Fest was better than last year's, or you know what I mean. The 2021 Summer Game Fest was better than the 2020 Summer Game Fest. Wasn't great, right? But I don't think it had the backing that he wanted it to, mostly because E3 still existed and people like Square and Warner Brothers and Microsoft and Nintendo were more there than they were with him. I do think that you can expect a Microsoft show to fall in the same time period, late May to early June. And I think they will do it in partnership with Jeff Keighley, at least loosely this year, right? Where it'll be listed as an event on the Summer of Games. You know, his Summer Game Fest website will be listed there as an event, but I don't think he'll actually be hosting it. I think it'll just be a show on the floor of uh Microsoft's stage in Seattle or Redmond. Where are they? Redmond? I always forget.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah, you'll have the floor showcase there, right? I think if you're an Xbox fan or even a Nintendo fan, expect their normal June showcase still. Just expect it to not have the E3 branding. And I think we will see the same thing with most of the showcases. They may merge a little bit, like Square Enix may not run its own showcase. Square Enix may lend off games to Xbox and Nintendo and PlayStation and maybe even like the PC game show or you know those other shows that exist. But I think we're still going to see a similar structure, albeit maybe a little bit more spread out throughout the summer, all with like Jeff Keighley's branding that he's not going to actually make them pay for. And I loved E3, but as someone who didn't go to E3, there's no real difference for me if the show is being held digitally separate versus with the E3 branding, right? It's just like the E and the 3 that are the only difference for me now. So as sad as I am to see this pillar of the industry go, I think it's its time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, but just I would love to have that experience. I remember like we've talked in the group like before, like before all this crap happened that oh yeah, we'll meet up at E3, we'll go to the Microsoft conference and this conference, and oh yeah, we'll go to this bar and so on. I just the whole just I would love to have those interactions, right, with all the other content creators and different show hosts and again all the personalities from the different studios and publishers. Just I would love to see that intermixing for myself at an E3 event. And it just feels like it's gonna you're gonna be missing out in a lot of ways. So
yeah, I do think there's a chance that we still have that kind of in-person event with Microsoft. Specifically because look at how many publishers they're going to control, right? They're going to have Xbox Game Studios, Xbox Global Publishing, Xbox Cloud Publishing, Bethesda Softworks, Activision, Blizzard, and King, right? 7 publishing units. Having a 2-hour show might not cut it in the summer anymore. They may do they could probably do a 2 or 3 day kind of mini event themselves. And if they're going to do that and they're going to set up all the time to host that, well, why not invite someone like Ubisoft? Why not invite someone like EA? Why not even invite someone like Nintendo and Sony? Microsoft doesn't really... Modern Microsoft has partnerships with them and does stuff with them. Like, look at Banjo-Kazooie showing up in, Smash and all of the other weird things that they've done with Nintendo, right? So, we could see maybe not Microsoft-led, but kind of like even the big publishers at the forefront of hosting some kind of new event instead of it being in the hands of the ESA. With the amount of growth they're all seeing. It's the wild, wild west of who knows what could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I hear you. No, and that's also a possibility too. I mean, well, there's many possibilities. MLD, Bud, I know that I don't know if you've ever been to any of the events, but it was something that I was personally looking forward to attending. Obviously, as I was just stating earlier, it's a shame, but like, do you see E3 recovering, or do you see like other shows like what Xbox does with its different showcases? Do you see like an expansion of that? Do you think E3 will go away and there'll be like an explosion of other shows? What are your thoughts?
Well, They did say that they're taking a break this year and they'll come back stronger than ever in 2023, but I have my doubts about that. It feels like the last few years, E3 just didn't have the same punch as it used to. I mean, let's be honest. I was talking about it before the pandemic. I wanted to, I was talking about to my wife to maybe go down for the weekend and just actually be there at the Xbox conference because I feel like it's just a different energy to actually be there to see this announcements in real time. And overall, E3 is it's traditional to a lot of gamers. That's just like the Christmas of gaming. So everyone just has all these thoughts associated with E3. But the more I'm thinking about it now, lately, I feel like it's overcharge. They overcharge publishers to even be there to set up their booths. When really, we're all 99% of us are all watching at home anyway. If they do their own digital event in June, which we know they will do, then nothing really changes. I mean, if it's gonna be the same show just independently with Xbox, then ultimately it's the same result with us. But I think E3, it's more, yeah, like I said, it's more like nostalgic. It's more traditional. People, it's just the feeling of like the idea of just everyone just coming. The gaming industry is just basically all eyes are on you at one point in time. You feel like you're part of a greater thing. I think it's just that feeling, and hopefully they can recapture that next year when that happens. I would like to go next year if they make it open to the public. So I guess we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But as far as this year goes, I'm still looking forward to their early June showcase. But like the other panel members said, they have so many studios now. Like I think we have what QuakeCon. That could be for Bethesda. You got BlizzCon. That'll be for Blizzard when the acquisition goes through. You can't do it all in just 2 hours anymore. There is no way. Xbox is getting too big for that now. So I'm looking forward to now more. I think this will lead to more independent shows throughout the year, with or without E3. But yeah, I hope it comes back. Well, hopefully it comes back and gives us all a reason to really watch it and tune in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a fair assessment too. I mean, Xbox does have a lot of publishing arms now. It's amazing. Obviously, you can't cram everything into, like you said, a 2.5 hour show. You can expand it all over the year. I mean, that's not even counting like an EXO event and other things. It's quite amazing. Or again, the video game awards and so on. There's all kinds of different avenues to go here. Centurion, I'm curious about your thoughts. Like, obviously, it sucks that all of E3 is getting canceled here, but there will obviously be other events like Jeff Keighley's, was it Summer of Games, which he just coincidentally kind of stepped in after the announcement of that. What do you think? Is it a bummer to you, or do you think that, again, other publishers and other shows are just going to step in here and fill in the holes?
It's definitely a bummer. Let's be honest. We all have our memories growing up. It doesn't matter whether you read about it in a magazine, internet article, watched it live on some kind of stream somewhere. E3 has been ingrained in gaming for a while. Like, I mean, E3, yeah, regrettably has come and gone once before, but this is probably going to be something that they might not be able to recover from. I keep reading that they used the pandemic as regrettably as an excuse. They were not ready to have an E3 this year, and they took advantage of basically by just trying to say that this was, I forget how it was referred to, but it was basically that they spun it, that it was due to what was going on right now when there was other reasons at fault. But this is going to also open the doors because, like, E3, let's face it, it started off as a developer conference or more like a tech conference for people in the industry to showcase their products that they wanted to put in the store shelves for the next year or later that year. And it grew into something much bigger. And then we started having fanfare come in, and, having fanfare totally changes the dynamic of something. You want to talk about what happens when something goes to an all digital event with no fans at all. Go back and look at the WrestleMania for 2020. Drew McIntyre fought his ass off to get that moment, that WrestleMania moment, just for him to find out that his WrestleMania moment was going to be held at the training center in Florida with not one person in the crowd. And that's a very interesting WrestleMania to watch. You don't have that crowd energy to get you excited for something that you're watching. Same with the game reveals. I mean, you do some world premiere and you all of a sudden see a game come on that everybody automatically knows what it is. And you hear people clapping, screaming, yelling at Keanu Reeves that he's amazing. I mean, it's just stuff like that, having an in-person audience gives you on screen. So everybody feels like they're part of the moment together. When you don't have that, it's like watching a sitcom on TV. It is what it is. It's just entertainment. It doesn't feel like a group event. And I really feel somebody like Jeff Keighley or another company will be able to take advantage of that. And with the vacuum that E3 would create not being there, maybe somebody like Jeff Keighley would come in and decide to create an in-person event. Like imagine Summer of Games going to being an in-person event somewhere where there's a live event. It becomes like E3. We have like a full week of gaming or a weekend or something like that. And Jeff Keighley is able to capture that in-person energy that everybody's wanting, and we'll be able to have those moments. Those are the moments I'm looking forward to when it comes to an E3 style event. Being able to sit down with people I've chatted for years about games and not had one moment to physically shake their hand or even hug them. There's great members in this community that I am entirely grateful for to be able to hold conversations with that just need a good old-fashioned hug. And I mean, we're not going to be able to have those connections. I mean, I remember talking to Tim Dog, hearing about all the amazing things that went down at the bars and the after events and the Xbox Live events. And I mean, it sounds like in a very amazing time, something that I definitely want to participate in. And it's very heartbreaking that there is potential that this might not happen on that level, and that literally my E3 experiences are all going to be contained to watching it on TV. And that it's kind of sad.
Well, and I agree to an extent because, yeah, we've heard Tim talk about that, Megatron, Downer, in the past. Like, these are very memorable moments that you can't just shake away, hanging out with different higher-ups from Xbox, talking, again, to Phil, to Aaron, to Mike Ybarra and so on, and like other people from other individuals from different publishers. Again, it's a great experience, and just talking to them one-on-one, just chilling, having a beer and so on. It just really there's a bit of camaraderie in there. But at the same time, again, we could see other events expanded, like the other members of the panel are saying. You take again, a BlizzCon, expand that even more, have more interactions, or again, expand XO and so on. I know that a lot of people are looking forward to that finally getting happening again. And again, they could take just Xbox's general show, whatever they're having in June or July, and again, just expand that a little more and invite fans to that. I mean, I think that would be great. Again, just if you're going to ditch E3, just take the best things that you had from your E3 conference and just reimagine it just on your own. Let's see here. Shock Buddy, I mean, I would love to know your thoughts on this. What do you think about E3 being canceled here? Do you think that it'll make a comeback, or is it just kind of dead in the water now?
I mean, it's disappointing, not surprising, but just because Nintendo's kind of not gone to it. Most of the other big publishers can't afford to do it because they don't have enough releasing to really make it worthwhile. With Sony backing out of it and leaving Xbox, and maybe an Xbox, here in the future, especially with Bethesda buying up an event with and then soon Activision, although I don't think Activision really ever did events themselves because they would just put Call of Duty on whoever's platform or whoever's event. So I mean, yeah, I feel like I'm disappointed that I never did it, because I was always like, whenever you'd read like EGMs back in the early 2000s, and it just seemed like this cool Disneyland place that I always wanted to go to. And then when I moved to LA, and worked at Fry's Electronics, had the perfect opportunity to do it because I was in Burbank, and just never went for the 3 years I was there. So I kind of, looking back now, is like, oh, I could have easily got approved just for working at Fry's and just being retail. So I could easily usually it was for press, but a lot of times you could easily get in. If you're representing like retail, especially for like a big retailer at that time. So, but otherwise, I mean, everything's going digital anyway, so it's like it's not really going to change much. So it's hard to get that amount of people there when it's not needed any longer, and everybody's like pretty much doing their own thing or backing out of it. So to rent something like that, like at least the traditional location they've always had, it's just hard to afford that when there's no need for it. And you might not get the turnout anyway, to actually rent that space out, because they're not going to give you a discount, because you're like, hey, we want to hold it here, but we're probably not going to have the amount of vendors here to actually front the cost for that large amount of space. Their rents, they're still going to be asking for the same price or more than what they used to, with inflation and everything going up. So yeah, it's sad to see it go, but that's either it's just going to downsize to a much smaller venue if they do it the traditional location in the future, but otherwise it looks like pretty much everybody's doing their own thing now, which makes sense. You can just do it like what Nintendo does and gives you a direct feed, you get your message out, and then it's cool to get those get people playing the games. But especially with Xbox now being one of the few ones that actually would still go, with Game Pass, you're putting all the games in everybody's hands anyway, day one. So they're going to try and give it a go anyway. So like Tunic or something, stuff. Whenever I'd see Tunic shown, I would be like, yeah, it looks kind of cool. I'm just totally not going to ever play that game. And I've been playing a ton of hours in that game. So it goes to show you. So
yeah. Speaking of which, have you beat it yet? Because I know you were talking about the bosses in the chat.
Not yet. There was one boss that I was just having some trouble with trying to get the. I beat the librarian, or I think it's librarian that I've seen people have trouble with. I did that first try, and I figured out a way to not cheat the system, and at least I feel, because if you're playing it on Steam, you're probably able to just back to your save file. But if you die on a boss, it takes all of your whatever consumables you used on that boss, they're gone. So it's like, and it's not like a roguelike, but they don't give you those back. So it's like you'd either have to farm for those and get them back to use again, or you can just turn your Xbox to offline mode, and then make sure your save was already synced to the cloud. Go to offline mode, and then if you die, you can just delete any of your save data on the console, and then just reload the cloud save back to your console again. So I'm gonna definitely go in there and just try to finish that out. But yeah, I think it was at the I think you have to do those like kind of like in Zelda Ocarina of Time, where you get those first 3 elements before you actually get like the Master Sword. I beat one of those main bosses, and I just need the other 2 pieces. So I'm just at those bosses, and they give you a lot of cool like shortcuts where you can go through all the different worlds really quick, like portals and stuff. So now I'm just at those bosses, highly leveled up. So I just need to go in there and knock those 2 guys out, and then I can move on with the game. But it's a ton of fun. So because even if you get stuck, don't worry. If you get stuck on that boss, move along. You can keep finding new areas, new pathways, new things to upgrade to make you stronger. So when you come back, you can have an easier go of it against that boss. So, but yeah, definitely give that a try if you haven't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as Carlos says in the chat, tunic hacks. Oh yeah, Shockley's definitely got the elite tunic hacks for everybody. So thanks for the tips there.
I was getting upset at that stuff. I'm like, wait, you're telling me I have to, because it's not about skill. I'm like, I can just go get those items again. It's just going to be a pain to just farm. So I'm like, no, just let me reload my old save, which if you're playing on Steam, you could easily just reload your old save on PC. You bought an Xbox, it's going to auto save and eliminate that. So I had to find a workaround because I was getting annoyed by that. So
yeah, good to know. Definitely good to know. Nice tip, Shock. Nice tip. But yeah, guys, I mean, like, I would definitely love to go to E3 sometime in the near future, but who knows what is going to be in store. But we still have all kinds of other shows to look forward to in the meantime, as all the different publishers and developers address, the situation. They've probably already planned for it. So again, we'll see in the coming year or two how E3 works out. But in the meantime, lots of other stuff to look forward to. And guys, remember, if you like the show, then hit the thumb button, give it a like, as that does really help us out, and sub if you haven't done so already, and turn on the bell for notifications, because, hey, YouTube can be a pain in the butt when it comes to it. Moving on to, our last topic of the evening, and there's been a bit of news over the last 2 weeks or so regarding the Microsoft acquisition of Activision-Blizzard. Of course, that's always in the news because it is such a huge deal. Recently, the Federal Trade Commission in the U.S. has asked Microsoft and Activision for additional information as it reviews this deal. As well, Activision shareholders, there's a meeting taking place on April 28th. It's significant considering that, if I'm to understand this right, if the majority of shareholders vote against it, then the deal, it might not be completed after all, which would be pretty shocking. Centurion, I know you like to keep aware about the kinds of, all these newsworthy things here. Do you think that Microsoft should be concerned about the upcoming shareholders meeting, or is it a nothing burger?
Are we talking about the shareholders meeting, or are we talking about everything as a whole?
Well, I mean, we can definitely get into everything. First, we can start off with the shareholders.
Shareholders meeting. This was something that was supposed to happen. That's the whole concept of a letter of intent, is when Microsoft came out with their letter of intent saying that they were intending to buy Activision. That was them announcing it. A lot of shareholders found out at that same time. Basically, yeah, the shareholder meeting is to do what everyone has the right to do. This is a process that is completely normal. All the shareholders are going to sit down and vote for this to happen. Now, there's the argument that's being said that at times, Activision, I think, even sank to like $60-something a share at one time.
Yeah.
But right now, currently, the average is somewhere around the 80s. And that's where that's where these shareholders have to basically take and think about the fact that Microsoft has offered them $95 a share. And depending on how many shares you have under your belt, that could be a large sum of money. And for some, though, the shareholders could be completely annoyed at the fact that, there's been allegations that Phil Spencer and Satya Nadella and the whole of Microsoft took advantage of the situation, and that they were just, opportunistic, taking advantage of the fact that Activision had got itself in troubled waters, and that Microsoft was able to somehow drive down the price of Activision to this $95 a share crap. And basically, some of these stockholders might want to feel that there's money being left on the table. So definitely, this shareholder meeting is going to be a very important stepping stone in getting this Activision deal across the finish line. Now, this not at any time, though. If you thought that this Activision deal was going to be signed, sealed, and delivered, and that the FTC was not going to ask for one damn thing, you had your head way high in the clouds. The FTC was always going to get involved. The FTC was always going to ask Microsoft to provide more documentation on this deal because it's $70 billion. You'd have to be crazy to think that the FTC would not want a little bit more insight to what this purchase is going to do, because this is the biggest electronics gaming purchase in gaming history. Of course, the FTC is going to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a big deal for many reasons. Carlos in the chat saying that the shareholders vote against the deal, they will have to pay like something like $5 billion to Microsoft, which, if I'm not
It's
mistaken,
$3 billion. It's
No,
three. It's a three.
two.
It's two. I've heard people say three.
If
But-
Microsoft is the cause, it's $3 billion. $3 billion to
Okay.
Activision. If Activision's the cause, it's $2 billion to Microsoft.
But yeah, that's what a lot of people don't realize is that this is a contract, and if this deal falls through, Microsoft is going to basically fork out a very expensive check, which would be a nothing burger, because they would get nothing for billions of dollars, other than wasted time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I can't see it being. I don't know. I can't see it just not closing personally. But I'll have to admit, I was actually months, maybe a half a year ago, I was interested in getting some Activision stock because I thought it was kind of cheap. But I don't know. I just always thought that Activision was kind of kind of scummy in some way. So I'm like, I'm gonna buy some more Microsoft stock instead. And I'm glad I did.
Right.
Yeah, right. Crusader Bud, what do you think? Do you think that the shareholders are gonna vote against it, go with it? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So, I think overall, it's a non-binding declaration, which means that it's not technically official. However, if they were to vote no, it would signal to the FTC that there's something up. I don't expect them to vote no. Looking for a lot of them, it's going to be a large payday versus what they invested into the company to begin with, because most of them didn't invest in at $80-$70 a share. They invested in early when Activision was worth half or less than what it is now. So this is, for most of the investment groups like Providence, this is going to be a massive payday, because and a lot of people think that Bobby Kotick owns like a majority of the company. He does not. He actually owns less than 2% of it. He is just the largest singular individual who owns stock of Activision-Blizzard. There's quite a few equity firms that own significantly more, and at the end of the day, I'm fairly certain they're going to vote yes, largely because if they vote no, the stock price is likely to tank, and tank hard, because not only is it not going to be propped up by the purchase agreement, which caused it to go from like $65 a share to like $80 in a matter of like an hour, but also, as stated, Activision has to pay out $2 billion to Microsoft if they are the cause of the default. And that's a huge deal. I mean, Activision's a big company, right? But that's a huge deal. That's, more than 2% of their overall evaluated worth. That includes all of the assets that they own, like the IP evaluation and things like that. So I really don't see the investors saying no. As for the FTC reviewing it, not only, as Centurion and you said, with this being the largest gaming acquisition of all time, this is one of the largest acquisitions of all time in any field. So, of course, they're going to be looking at it with a hawk's eye. I also do not see it getting stopped. I do see the potential that they may have to sell off, that the deal might be altered within the FTC, that there might be some things that they have to make promises about. They may have to release something like King and release them as an independent organization or put them up for sale after so long. These are not uncommon asking points of the FTC, and Microsoft will agree to what they think is fair, and they will, if they do not think it's fair, they will fight it in court, or they will continue to negotiate with the FTC. Because the FTC can ask for any changes they want to a deal like this. They can. They could ask that all of Activision-Blizzard King's games remain fully open on every platform for 10 years. They can ask that. It's up to Microsoft to say, yeah, okay, we'll do that, or no, we won't do that, and we will go to court with you. Because the FTC, in the end, doesn't actually make a decision. They themselves do not block a acquisition or merger from going through. If they find that they want to try to stop one, they bring up a lawsuit, and in the end, it is decided within the justice system. Now, both the FTC and Microsoft are going to do everything in their power to make it so that it doesn't go to the court system, because neither of them want a long and drawn-out court battle. Unless the FTC is trying to make a grandiose stand against big corporations, which in this political climate could be the case. I doubt it. I doubt that they will take the stand here rather than something like Facebook or Google. But I foresee this everything that you're seeing in the news, at least in regards to the FTC doing a review and the Activision-Blizzard investors coming to a vote, completely normal and expected.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it's going to go through just fine, but, you know, there are these little things that come up that could possibly derail things. You never know. MLD, but I mean, obviously, you know, nothing, you can't go through the news cycle, you know, ever since the announcement was made back in January about something dealing with this Activision-Blizzard deal with the acquisition by Microsoft. Like, do you agree with what Crusader and Centurion are saying, that, you know, like, besides, you know, some, you know, there might be some roadblocks, but like otherwise this deal should go through? Or, I don't know, like, do you think that there might be some stumbling points?
Oh, I mean, they touched on the points pretty well. I personally am not worried. I mean, this journey is very interesting and entertaining to follow, and we'll be going through all this until at least what, mid, like E3 next year. Hopefully, it's closed by then.
That's
we can start.
That's like as long as they expect it could possibly go.
Exactly. Yeah.
They said fiscal year 23, which is June to June.
Perfect. So if all goes well, if we have a worst case scenario, we'll like reap the fruits of all this labor with like an E3 day one Game Pass drop of everything. But that's beside the point. Point is here, the shareholder meeting, I'm not worried about that. Like everyone else here said, it's in everyone's best interest to keep it going forward. So I'm not worried about that. It's more like the, I mean, we all expected the U.S. government to get involved on some scale because, again, this is like the acquisition is just massive. But I think I was on the Twitter, a lot of people on Twitter actually, where they were commenting about Elizabeth Warren, like the top Democrat senator, making a very weird claim how working conditions for Activision Blizzard could be worse under Microsoft, and how the FTC should look into that. And that was so weird on so many levels. I think, yeah, it was people point out it was just political grandstanding, just politicians just showing that they care, just showing just getting their voice out there just because. But but it's just her statement was just so ridiculous because Microsoft, they're one of the best places, if not the best place to work, like in tech. Period. Their Activision working conditions cannot get worse; they can only get better. Xbox's HR is like some of the best in the industry, so I don't see any false claim that this merger could actually be worse for the workers. And also, the FTC does not investigate workplace conduct; they only investigate the commerce, the business side of things. So I feel like this is a lot of people are they're putting the magnifying glass to this thing, maybe a little more than I expected, and it's all definitely entertaining. But ultimately, it's still going to go through because, I mean, I'm not an expert in all this stuff, but I'm just going based off the facts. Like say with Candy Crush, Xbox as a brand has almost no presence in the mobile space. I mean, they got like a free to play Forza game on their phone on the phone. Like not really much presence there. In terms of PC, the Windows Store has little market share compared to Steam. So inheriting Battle.net and World of Warcraft stuff like that would make them more competitive in the PC space. In the console space, they're behind Nintendo and behind Sony. This would actually level the playing field in terms of the console space. Like, I don't think they'll have to make many concessions at all. I mean, beyond Call of Duty staying multiplat. I think that's the main one, which I think, yeah, they've already confirmed that they're doing that. So
Can-
we're
Can I
gonna
jump
go
on
through.
the Elizabeth Warren thing real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So she and 3 other senators wrote a letter to the FTC. I thought we were going to be talking about this in a little bit. That's why I held off on
Go for it.
bringing it up. But I do think that she worded that message very poorly because it makes more sense in the context of that letter. In that they feel that because of the terms of the deal, specifically the payouts that the upper management are getting, that workers in general are losing some of their potential bargaining power in general throughout, like, not just the tech industry but all industries, because the people who made these bad decisions and allowed the bad things to happen at the company are getting essentially off scot-free. And it's not so much that things will be worse for them directly under Microsoft, that working for Microsoft will suddenly, they'll be working in the slave mines, but rather that that their ability, that their individual voices and ability to stand up to upper management and bargain together could potentially be harmed in general. And the reason that the FTC would then be allowed to review this is because of the payout terms of the deal to those people who were like Bobby Kotick and a couple of the other senior leaders at Activision, who would essentially be getting very large payouts because of the amount of shares that they own and just the terms of the acquisition deal. It's a very, very long stretch for the FTC to review, but it's not necessarily outside of their realm.
Oh yeah, I did read that statement overall though, and it does seem like a reach regardless.
Yeah, it is. But it's not quite as silly as it sounds at first glance. But I also agree with you. I think it's silly.
Yeah, the tweet was definitely not worded properly,
No.
but yeah, overall though, yeah, I think it's all gonna go through in the end. It's just gonna be a fun ride regardless, and seeing all the reactions on both sides. Each side is like hoping, yeah, one Xbox guys hoping it goes through, and the PlayStation guys hoping it stops and it gets blocked. This is quite the generation, guys. Nothing quite like this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting. Again, you see these 4 Democrat senators just come out and express concern over this Microsoft purchase of Activision. I mean, really, the interest is for Microsoft to come in and clean up. That's what a lot of people are thinking, right? Because again, Activision, Blizzard, everybody knew that it needed a good clean up, get some of those higher ups out of there, like Kotick and so on. I mean, okay, there's talks about him getting a payout. There was a rumor of that once this deal goes through, but again, we don't know anything yet about that. But the thing is, yeah, Microsoft here has the chance to really clean up Activision-Blizzard because, well, again, things aren't too good over there. But then again, I mean, I don't know if you guys heard about the whole Undead Labs thing, but
Oh yeah.
So that's funny that they are having the opposite problem that they had. What was it, like 5-6 years ago, where they have given their studios too much free reign. That they aren't monitoring them enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's they need to find a balance point.
Yeah, that's what I got too. But then again, I just don't trust Kotaku with anything, so I don't know what to believe, to be honest. Um, but yeah, it's one thing like you look at this and you want Microsoft to come in and clean up shop with Activision Blizzard, but then you hear about how they're very hands off with again Undead Labs and I guess even 343 Industries to a large extent. People want them to be like, hey, guys, can you get your crap together here? Like, come on. So, I mean, I do like them being hands off, but it's a matter of, knowing when to step in. So I'm just kind of wondering what's kind of going on here with the organization. So,
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. They should have a little more of a middle ground in terms of like game development cycle, hands-on. That's like, yeah, I think they gotta find a good middle ground there because I feel like this generation now, even though they have so many studios, I'm finding that the development cycle is gonna be longer for every game as compared to last generation, which it is what it is. But I feel like in terms of the Undead Lab situation, I feel like their HR should their HR is like a phone call away, I feel like, or an email away. They shouldn't, if people have complaints, hands on or hands off or not, like you find that number for that Xbox Microsoft HR, you make the call, you make the complaint. So I don't see how this was overlooked. Like if they know that they had the resources to anonymously complain or complain openly, yeah, it was all confusing for me to read that.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know, like Kotaku does put out like some pretty weird articles too, and I don't know, I'll be honest, a lot of the times I don't really trust their sourcing, in all honesty. So, and then you had the former head of the studio come out, and he knew that they were gonna put out this article. They contacted him, and it just he tried to get ahead of it, speaking about it and so on. So it's interesting. I mean, obviously, it's just more about like to me, from what I read in between the lines was like the studio. It went from being so small to once Xbox purchasing them, just growing to a point where it's hard to manage at the same time. So, I guess that's why we also haven't gotten a lot of details about State of Decay 3 as well. Because I guess it's been in, they've been trying to reshape things at the studio. So, growing pains, I guess you would say. But, you gotta watch out for these kinds of stories. But Shockley, buddy, I'd love to know your thoughts here on this whole, like, again, the FTC checking up on Activision and so on. Like, obviously they want more information from both Microsoft and Activision-Blizzard. With this whole shareholders thing coming up at the end of April, like, do you think, do you feel certain that this deal is going to go through? Do you agree with the other guys on the panel, or do you have any different thoughts? Shock? I think Shock's having a nap here. But, I don't know, guys. Like, I mean, personally, I don't think that it's such a... I can just see it going through personally. Like, I haven't heard anything really negative. I mean, sure, you got these people in the government that are chiming in on it, but otherwise, I mean, again, to me, this deal would be, again, a huge benefit to all the employees at Activision Blizzard. There's a chance to clean up shop here, improve like workplace conditions, the image of Activision and Blizzard as a whole, and so on, and just make better games too. Because again, they were not making anything like new. There was nothing really new coming out of them. It was just Call of Duty and Diablo coming, and Overwatch and so on. But well, I just have to see here, guys. But you know what? I think on that note, I think like, I don't know if Shocky there. Okay. All right. Well, I think on that note, guys, we'll start closing things off for the night. And you know what? I gotta say, it was a fun talk tonight with the gang on a wider range of array of things, including E3 being canceled, PlayStation Plus getting, well, revamped, upgraded, whatever you want to call it. And of course, US officials, as we're just talking about, looking into the Microsoft buyout of Activision, Blizzard, and more. We talked about a wide array of things. And of course, we had a dynamite crowd tonight. Lots of really awesome people in the chat. As always, it's just great seeing you here and just, yeah, the banter just going on in the chat below. If you guys enjoyed tonight's chat, the show, then please consider leaving a like, subbing to the channel if you haven't already, and sharing out tonight's show across various forms of social media. With all that said, guys, let's wrap things up and go to the outros. And I will start with Centurion. Pal, I thought you had some really great points tonight. You were really well spoken. Where can all these fine people follow you at?
Thanks, gentlemen. It's been a great Sunday night. Awesome conversations. Thank you to everybody in the chat that was there to join us. And thank you to everyone joining us after the fact. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And for those interested in finding me, please find me at Centurion1307 on YouTube, Xbox Live, and of course, Twitter. And you can find me every Sunday night with this group of amazing gentlemen right here on the TXR Podcast.
All right. Well said, my friend. Moving on down the list here. General MLD, buddy, I thought you had some really good points tonight as well. Again, you just solid overall, some solid talking points. Where can all these fine people follow you?
Thank you. Mostly active on Twitter at MLD Ghost, and my gamer tag is GhostMLD. You'll find me trying to figure out how to play Crusader Kings 3 properly. So yeah, looking forward to next week, and we'll keep. I'm sure Xbox will keep this news train going.
No doubt. I think we'll learn some stuff in the coming days for sure. Monday is usually a good one. Yeah, so I would not be surprised. Moving on down the list here, Crusader. Hey man, you had a great show tonight. Again, you had some really well thought out ideas and opinions and whatnot. Where can everybody follow you at?
Everyone can follow me at Crusader3456 on Twitter, where you will see me do in-depth, just discussions on the news or things that are on my mind or games that I'm playing. And you can also find me on Reddit at the same username, u/Crusader3456, where I do a lot of discussions about leaks and rumors as well as Destiny content.
All right. Yeah, guys, definitely check him out on Reddit and follow his social media. Looks like Shock had to bail. Hopefully he comes back. Yeah, and guys, just so you know, obviously Tim Dog couldn't make it, unfortunately. He had to do some stuff, but he will be back next week. And to close out the group, you all can find my content on YouTube at Invader Gaming. As well, you can follow me on Twitter at Invader_1886. I also got some other stuff on other media sites. Just check the description down below for that. Good chat tonight, everyone, and I'm already looking forward to next week's show. I mean, again, news usually drops bright and early on Mondays, so tomorrow we'll probably have all kinds of stuff to look forward to talk about. Later, guys. Have a good one.